by bringing on some of our colleagues from Bots for That. Over the course of this season, we've featured some serious powerhouses, serious powerhouse women, innovators, creators, and leaders who are reshaping the future of work. But as we wrap up season 1, we realized it would be a total miss to not turn the mic inward and celebrate all of you amazing humans who make Bots for That what it is. Today we're joined by Dan, Tom, and Connor for a special episode of She Means Business. In recent years, words like toxic workplace and boys club have popped up within the working world. At the center of it all is bro culture, which is something that we'll be discussing today.
So what does bro culture look like inside a company, and how does it show up and more importantly, how do we change it? So let's start with some quick fire intros. So can each of you explain who you are, what you do at Bots for That, and what's your go-to I work in tech slogan?
I'm Connor Beamish. I'm the head of the Beaniverse, which means I lead up our sort of web development team. What makes me want to be involved in this episode? I think it's really interesting to get other insights into what goes on and maybe like highlight some issues that I'm not aware of. So this is a bit of a learning experience. And I guess my go-to I work in tech is so all I do is stare at screens all day. Which is true.
Tom.
I'm Tom Evans. I'm revenue operations here at Bots for That, so I'm more on the sales side of the tech stuff. I guess why I wanted to be involved in this episode today is obviously in a sales-centric role. I've seen everything throughout my career, a lot of things which come up in companies which really shouldn't be there in 2025 or ever. And I guess my work in tech sales line is I chat nonsense on the phone all day. But yeah, that's me. Daniel?
Yeah, my name is Daniel Goldney. I'm a AI / back-end engineer. Most of my career I've worked in quite male-dominated companies, and I think for me it was about sort of understanding my own biases really, because as I say, I've not been exposed that much to this sort of area, and even in doing research for this episode I was sort of looking inwards a little bit and realising maybe I do have biases that I didn't know about, and I think the first step to every solution is understanding the problem, so that's what I wanted to discuss.
I love that.
Awesome, thanks so much for joining us. Yeah, so let's touch on the ideology of bro culture. So bro culture is often associated with a hyper-masculine kind of frat-like mentality that can appear both socially and in the workplace. So when people say bro culture, what do you kind of think about when that's brought up?
I think for me, bro culture is kind of like we say, like that hyper-masculinity. It's like these traits that show up in males particularly that might be quite negative or perceived as quite negative, that show up in the workplace specifically. And when we talk about it in tech, it's that bro culture in tech of these characteristics and this isolating group that excludes people. Mm-hmm. And a lot of like partying, rude jokes, that sort of stuff, you know. So
yeah.
I think it's a performative confidence over collaboration.
Right.
Just being confident whether you're right or wrong in anything and making sure your voice is louder than other people's voices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot of almost innuendo can work its way into conversations, which the workplace really isn't a place for that.
Yeah.
And it can come from all types of areas within the business, and 9 times out of 10 it's perpetuated by the bros of the team, and even little micro things where you walk into the office and you'll hear some people say like, "Oh, morning boys." It's like, that's not what this office is filled with.
Yeah.
It's exclusive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And although it's a very small aspect, it can very easily isolate certain people within the company and within the room and within the conversation.
Yeah, and it's not often. I mean, it's not always kind of targeted, against women, right? It can be inclusive to all genders around the workplace, right? So, like you were saying, it is pretty much exclusionary. There's a lot of othering with it, kind of like a club mentality that really just kind of separates, for lack of a better term, the bros from the rest of the office,
Do you feel like there's any generational shifts? Because in our office we are quite young in Bots for That, majority. Do you feel that there's differences within generations, like Gen Z versus millennial versus?
100%. Growing up, obviously, I'm 32, so I'm one of the older heads in the office. My childhood, I would say things were a certain way or to describe certain things which definitely aren't okay, but it was just, that was the norm, that's what everyone said, and that's kind of the mentality you got into. It wasn't until probably I went to university and started meeting other people from different backgrounds and different walks of life, where it was, oh, maybe I need to correct the behaviour that I'm doing myself. And as Daniel said at the start, I think that's always the most important bit, right? Is realising not only what the problem is, but what my part of the problem is and how to correct that on my side.
And what kind of stuff, like what kind of things or actions have you put in place to correct that? And if you mind giving some examples, maybe.
Of course, yeah. It's really watching my language. I come from the valleys back in the day, where at the end of the day, 90% of the people I bothered with were, standard football bros, white guys, and it was just. That's what it was all built around. We didn't know anything else. Like, you'd see stuff on TV. I know obviously like comedy has changed over the years, but the comedy which was back then, certain jokes which were being made on TV shows, movies, which definitely wouldn't carry today. But that became part of my daily vocabulary, if you like. And it was
that very much. I grew up playing rugby as well, so
exactly
just all the things you think are completely normal because that's what you've been doing your whole life. You're suddenly like, hang on, that's actually not making people feel great, and that's not really what the guy I want to be.
Exactly.
I think if you look at like just the words that you'd hear in the playground when we were at school, probably you wouldn't hear those as much when you were at school. And the generation above us, there's probably words that they're saying that are quite offensive that we would never use now.
Yeah.
I think that's going to go forward as well when we look at the next generations that are coming up, like Generation Alpha and kids nowadays. There's going to be things that even the Gen Zs today are saying that are going to be considered offensive in the future. I think it's like, as individuals, it's about recognizing the language and what's acceptable changes, and not being part of the problem and not fighting it, but like accepting that and making those changes yourself to help make the space and the community that you're in feel more welcoming. So,
can I make a counterpoint to that, actually?
Yeah.
Because what we're saying now is sort of the implication of it's getting better, we're more aware of these things that we shouldn't be doing. But there's the generation, I would say, below mine, or sort of pubescent teenagers now, are sort of following the Andrew Tate mentality of things. And it seems to suddenly be getting worse again. It's weird. It's like we're aware of things, but we don't actually care that much anymore.
That's really scary, actually.
And you just, because it's much more blatant than it was before. Before it was in jokes, but now it's actually just, not caring. It seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong about this because it's the internet sensationalism, but it seems to be getting worse.
I think it comes from a very defensive mindset. It's very easy when obviously people are having these open discussions about what toxic masculinity is. If somebody's personality is purely based around that type of mindset, it's very easy for them to take that as an attack and then push back. And I think that's what's happening with the Andrew Tates of the world, and it's the not all men thing and all that. And it's, realistically, it's not all men, but at the same time, the ones who are screaming, not all men, online, they're probably part of the problem. They're probably one of those men.
Right, and as we kind of like get into these conversations about equality, it can be, I think, a prevalent feeling where, because we're bringing people up from below and up to like the level that you're at, there's this feeling of like, oh, well, they're getting all these things and what are we getting? And this feels unfair now because they're getting so much and we're not. But it's just kind of this idea of like bringing people up to your level so that they have the same chances that you have. And I think that there's some defensiveness that comes with that because they don't personally see the effects of it on themselves, because society has pretty much been the case that they always have those privileges, and now that someone else has the same, it doesn't feel as prominent to them potentially.
Exactly, and that's what it's all about. It's not about bringing down anyone to match. It's about bringing everyone else up to that level where everyone gets the same opportunity. And unfortunately, the way to do that is, in some cases, making things like a certain percentage of people have to be a certain ethnicity or whatever it may be, a certain gender, because we have to take such drastic steps because of how bad it got. And we have to do that in order to equal the playing field. And that's just the way it needs to go.
Giving other people opportunities that they don't historically have or haven't really had the chance to take on those roles historically. So I think that having that opportunity to lift other people up and making sure that we have a diverse and inclusive workplace is really important. That's why it's important to have these conversations, to keep implementing these new policies and, I guess, ideologies in the workplace so that we can continue growing. And it's not just about recognizing it, it's about putting stuff in practice. And a lot of that is practice, right? You can't be good at something unless you practice. That's kind of, the underlying theory about that. So even though it does kind of get harder to, maybe mentally hard or might feel a little bit difficult or things aren't changing, it's like a slow change.
But it starts the mindset change, right? That's like where it begins. And that can only happen if you get educated and if you're aware of these problems. you can't change your mindset if you don't understand it, right?
Right. And to change your mindset makes you kind of like a role model. Like you're starting to change your mindset. I'm starting to be educated on these. I'm starting to talk about these topics in the workplace. And then other people see that, right? They see that and they go, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Or maybe I should be doing more research on that because I can't really have an opinion on that right now.
Yeah.
If we bring it back to the workplace, actually, what we were saying about those kind of awkward comments that get said, I think sometimes, like as a woman, I find it awkward to counteract or say anything. I'm quite intrigued to see what you guys think from like your perspective. What should be done in those situations where words that might be inappropriate are said in the workplace?
Yeah, complacency, very dangerous.
What should happen?
Calling it out is the first point, right? I mean, I know I've definitely said some things in the office, and I probably will in the future. And if it's something which isn't, correct, I want to be called out because that's how I'm going to learn. I'm not going to take offence to me saying something wrong, right? If I'm offending somebody else, I need to know so that I can correct that behaviour myself. And as you've just mentioned there, maybe as a woman who maybe a lot of these comments are going to be more derogatory towards you than us, and you feel uncomfortable calling that out, maybe other people in the office need to take a step to call that out, not on your behalf, but to make sure that it's known that that's not okay.
It's that like allyship as well, isn't it, right?
Yeah.
It's like being supporters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
I think
about everyone holding each other accountable.
Yeah.
Just the people who are actually in that position of being a victim of
Exactly.
things. Because sometimes it is difficult to be the one to lash out.
Especially the people that are the role models, right? Like they're the ones that set the examples. They got to stand up and lead by example.
And I think that's one of the things that our office does like really well is that we're very open to listening criticisms, opinions, that kind of stuff. I think we're really good at that, and it's very apparent. Previous workplaces that I've been in that haven't really felt that way, but I do feel a little bit more welcomed, a lot more welcomed, and a lot more like I belong in this place because it's a comfort.
I would agree because even though it is a very, male-dominated office, I don't feel that way in this company. I don't feel like it's a boys' club. So kudos to you guys.
Yeah, good job. And also like to bring it back to the workplace. What are some of the things again that maybe we haven't been doing lately, but we could do better at? What are some of the things that we could focus on potentially? Like I said, we do a really good job on that, but I mean, there's some more stuff.
Yeah. Like you say, we have a very multicultural office. I think that aspect of it, we do very well. We have a good representation. I do think people feel very welcome. But I think, like you said, it's a lot of the comments. I think there's stuff that we maybe let slide a little bit. Maybe some things that might be said that are slightly unprofessional. And I think we do need to take a step in and just kind of nip it in the bud there before it gets worse.
Something I thought, I was doing some research for this episode actually. Something that's really interesting is that neurodivergence, girls and women aren't diagnosed at anything like a similar rate that men are. And so women actually end up masking to quite a significant degree within the workplace. So they end up almost doing a second personality, like a workplace personality and an at-home personality. And there's quite a lot of research going into this at the minute. And so people, I would say, well, it'd be interesting to get your opinions on this actually, but a lot of women say they're almost putting a lot of their energy into maintaining a personality that isn't actually their own personality in the workplace, and that's naturally going to end up detracting from the energy they put towards actually doing their job because they don't feel safe enough to be the person that they are.
Yeah, I think so.
You go.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been in situations where I've high masked before. It took a lot to kind of deconstruct that because I do also have ADHD, and like you said, it's not really diagnosed at the same rate and at the same age, right? Because the symptoms of it are vastly different between the two genders. So a lot of the times, men or boys are diagnosed at a young age, whereas you don't really find it as often until in women until they're like in adulthood.
Yeah.
And that kind of not knowing that diagnosis, but knowing that there's something there is kind of leading into that masking because you're like, I know that this is how everyone interacts, and I know that I should be doing this way, but I don't feel that way internally. And that kind of perpetuates that idea of like, well, I have to kind of be like everybody else. And I think in the workplace or wherever it is in school or whatever, it is very easy to kind of get caught into that like, do I seem like I'm doing this fine? How do people think about what I'm doing right now? Does it look like I'm being competent right now? Because oftentimes when I'm listening, like truly listening, I'm like in my head, I'm not really like looking at you, or I'm like not really making it seem like that, But I mean, I think because I feel so comfortable in this office, that masking has greatly, decreased. I am kind of my weird self.
Yeah.
You know.
Get
And
Something
they-
in all its glory.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I think because we're not a super corporate company, that really helps. So I can't relate specifically to masking, but I can relate in terms of working somewhere which was super corporate and having to really be someone who I didn't feel like that was me, like super professional and super like almost like you have to keep your personality, and I think that is really hard. Yeah, and I think as a woman sometimes, and I don't know if you would agree, but you can be perceived differently if you're like too giggly or too funny or too loud.
Less professional.
Yeah, and
Less
a lot of
professional,
things that
a little
add
bit
to
more
it.
infantilized, somewhat kind of an idea that maybe you don't know a lot just because you're like giggling and
Yeah.
you're not taking it seriously.
And that's really hard, I think, because sometimes I'm just like, and tone it down.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Let me seem more professional so I can be taken seriously.
Just a question on that then. Would you kind of say that, especially in the corporate world, like masculine qualities in the workplace are more praised?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's a lot easier for men to. We don't have to mask as much because it's an environment that's suited to how we act.
Yeah, I feel like.
Yeah.
Even
I mean,
I was going to say even the way I would dress in corporate places, like I would just feel like, I don't know if you would agree, but like the things that I wear, I have to like really overthink it because it's like, oh, I need to be perceived like this, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas
I
I
think
think
it must be a struggle for women, to be fair, actually,
Yeah.
much more, because women could be judged for their dress to a much greater degree, really, than men
Yeah.
can be dressed.
Or even another one
different.
is makeup. Like I've had comments like, oh, like why aren't you putting makeup on? Or like, why this, why that? And it's kind of like, well, that's how it's seen, you know?
Yeah.
Do you relate?
I do, yeah, I do.
I think we don't get judged on that anywhere near as much, especially in a corporate setting. It's like put on a nice shirt and some trousers, and if you've got a decent jacket on, someone might compliment you on it. But like that's
It'll
about
be
it.
better
We're
than
not going to
nice
get
people.
Yeah.
Whereas women can often get scrutinised for ways like it's too revealing and things like that. That doesn't really happen to the same degree for men, really, does it?
No. I feel like I could show up in shorts and no one really bat an eye.
Or sweatpants. I wish I could wear sweatpants.
Can we have a sweatpants day?
We'll do sweatpants day, like pajama day. That'd be awesome.
But do you actually, that's an interesting question. Do you think if we came in to work in sweatpants, it would be an issue? If you guys came in sweatpants, it would be an issue.
I think it would be. I think that somebody would make a comment on it.
Yeah.
You think so?
I think
feel
it
I
would.
would be uncomfortable, but not because I don't like sweatpants, but because of how it would be perceived.
Yeah.
Right. So it's more of like the internal perception.
External.
External.
How people could be like, oh, she's
The
not
idea
professional.
that someone might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The anxiety around it, I guess.
Yeah.
That anxiety I wouldn't experience.
Maybe.
And that also kind of like takes away some of the energy as well. That's like along with masking, it's like kind of like worrying about how we're going to be perceived in a corporate environment, because we want to seem professional, we want to seem competent, we want to seem like we know what we're doing, that we're taking seriously. And I think I focused on that a lot when I first started. Like I just want to make sure that I'm taken seriously. That's why I bought skirts that I don't wear. Right. Hate them. I was like, I bought them. I'm gonna be serious. And then
I know,
like,
and the
started wearing
heels.
the heels, right?
I gave up. Shout out to girls who can wear heels. Because
I love it.
I respect that.
Respect.
So you've spoken a lot about the workplace, but it would be interesting to hear about the females in your life. So who's a female role model for you and why? Who wants to go?
Could be a family member. Could be
Yeah.
something
Go
growing
on,
up.
Thomas.
It was really easy for me. It's my mother.
Aww.
Obviously, despite my being a little bit older, and obviously we've come a long way since then. But even as a child, my mother was the breadwinner. She was, although my dad's an intelligent man, he never really applied himself and worked in a factory his whole life until he lost his sight and had to retire. Whereas my mother has worked her way up through a company. She didn't get the chance to go to college, go to university, but she did on-the-job learning, and she was always the breadwinner in my family. So I've never really had that from a childhood of, oh, dad's bringing home the bacon, mother's in the kitchen, and all that olden time awful stuff. It's always been, no, mother's a badass.
I love that.
And that's kind of how I've grown up. She's always been the person. I still compete with her to this day, which is always good, and that's always fun at home.
Nice.
It's lovely.
Do you want to go from that?
Oh, you go.
Yeah, well, mine is also my mum, actually.
Not my mum.
I consider her to be quite a strong role model. She's got a very, very strong moral compass. She's super politically active, and it seems like she's always just fighting for the little guy. So there'll be some, like, I don't know, Irish newt or something that's being mowed down, and she'll fight for any cause that she thinks is worthy, no matter if it's like a sort of a very uncool thing to do. I used to think it was so uncool when I was a kid, because she'd like protest random things and all these things, but now I actually think it's the coolest thing ever. No matter what, she'll just fight for what she believes in.
You said she works at she volunteers at a wildlife.
Yeah, she works for a wildlife company, gets people to sign on, and they do all sorts of like really cool projects for protecting like forests and things. So yeah, shout out to her if you want to sign up.
Link below, link below.
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, my mum was also a very great woman, but I think maybe something a little bit different to add a little bit of variety. One of like my favorite sports stars when I was growing up was Lynn Hill, who's a climber. And this was back in the day when climbing was a very macho sport. It was a boys' club, and there was one route in Yosemite Valley, up El Capitan, and all the boys were struggling to do it. And she was the first person to free climb the route. Back when the boys couldn't do it, and it was a finger up to the guys to say like, hey, this is not just a man's sport. This is a women's sport too, and women are at the cutting edge of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's like quite inspirational. Really.
That is inspirational.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of tell like how far we've grown as a society. I mean, we still have a lot more to go, but how far we've grown as a society since then, right? Like we have a lot more women coming up in sports, and a lot more female, I guess, leaders in the workplace as well. And that's, like I said, still have a lot of work to do on that, but I think that there's some good stuff happening behind the scenes to get us to where we want to go.
And I think the base of that is encouraging women to go into those sports and go into those industries and go into like when we talk about with STEM as well, like there's not as many women are encouraged to go into that subject as in those subjects as other subjects. So I think it's kind of like starting it down at the base and slowly
working your way up to
yeah.
Spot on. I mean, there's obviously a football craze, and there's a lot of talk about gender equality within sport, and I think we need to be looking at the grassroots level within football, for example. There needs to be more options for girls to join a local club. There needs to be better facilities, because that's how the top end of the game improves then, and that's how it becomes much more balanced and everything like that. So yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah.
Nice. We'll cut this bit. Just having a look. So I feel like we've covered quite a few of the. I don't want to repeat that.
I'll say, because you talked about that. Okay, I got a little transition here. So yeah, you're right with sports. Like you start from the ground up, kind of like taking a ground root approach. I think we can kind of put that into the same terms with the workplace, right? Like putting a lot of money and investment into those junior roles, into those positions that we're looking for to have a more inclusive place with women, right? Do you think that there are other areas that we could improve along the same lines as that grassroots approach for sports for women?
Of course, we'll go to schooling, whether that be primary, high school, college, wherever that may start. There needs to be more option and more encouragement for women, because when I first went to college, I actually did a computer science course, which obviously didn't stick with that, and I ended up in sales, but I think I had one girl in my class, a class of 30, and she was seen as the outgoing party girl, basically. When there was definitely a change in the relationship between some of the guys in the room and herself. So there needs to be more encouragement for more women to be involved in that.
Was that kind of like a bro culture thing as well?
Oh, 100%, 100%. Yeah, it was the gamer bro, it was then you had the couple of gym bros in the office, they exist everywhere. But yeah, it was all centered, they were the two main factions, and then she just floated between whoever talked to her on that day. It wasn't as if she had almost a safe place in the classroom. She did have one close friend who was outside of our class, who was in another class, and she was again the only girl in that class. And it was just, it's tough. Yeah, I would hate to be in that position, but at the time it's not something I even really considered. But now obviously doing this, obviously looking back at what could have changed, like I would have liked to think I would have approached her and tried to be kind of not necessarily in a safe space, but get her involved with me and my friends and how that was going, and just reach out really and start the conversation.
And that reflection is definitely something that like will help you grow, right? Like taking that approach with everything, just like the reflecting on what happened in my life that I can apply this mindset to as well, and how can I learn from that. I think a lot of the time when I'm thinking about like when I'm stuck or I'm trying to understand how to move forward, that reflection kind of helps to give hope on how far I've come, and to give, I guess, an inspiration to keep going.
I think with regards to getting women into the tech industry generally, the issue actually goes beyond the industry itself, I would say, because like I think for myself and for a lot of other people, the way I got into tech was I started playing video games, and then I started modding video games, and then I started writing little bits of code. But video games are very, very male dominated, and they're sort of made for men really when you look at them. There's very few female characters you can actually play in any video game, and if there are female characters, they're usually hyper-sexualized, and they're there for the fantasy of a man to some degree. And so I think that's sort of making gaming generally more open to everyone would probably be the key to get a lot of people interested in something that feels like it's closed off to them.
Even going as far back as like toys as well, like when you're like a real small kid, like remote control cars and things like that. Anything that was like techie was for boys, but
I remember when I was younger, I asked my grandma for trucks for my birthday, and she goes, "I'm gonna get you a Barbie."
Ironically, I actually asked for a Mulan doll after the Disney Mulan came out. You could like cut her hair off and stuff. So.
Did you cut her?
I think that's a different one.
I think that explains a lot, really.
Oh, that's funny.
So, Tom, you spoke about how there were not many girls in your class at school. I want to go back to the generational shift a little bit to you, Daniel. Do you feel like there's a difference from how you grew up, I guess? Is there 10 years between you?
Roughly about
Roughly. Or
I put that in.
cut that part
I thought this was a safe space.
out. So yeah, any differences that you might have noticed?
I would say actually in my year it was probably sort of 60-40 almost, so much more even than what you experienced, which is interesting.
That's
But
good to see.
the issue, I would say, again, is more than the industry itself, because if you look at education across the board, women typically actually dominate in education. And in fact, the gender disparity between now and 1972 is the same, but the other way around. So women are actually doing way better in education, which is obviously fantastic that we're promoting women. But in the tech industry, that's not really
Right, it
sort of
doesn't
following
translate
through.
to leadership roles,
For some reason, that hasn't happened. And so
What
that's
can
really
we do?
interesting.
So at what point does that happen, though, I
Yeah.
think is the question.
Exactly, yeah.
And what's stopping it? What's stopping, highly educated women going into these positions, applying for these roles, progressing in their careers?
Do you think there's like because a lot of the higher up positions in industry are taken over by men of older generations, do you think it is a mindset that will eventually grow out of as people end up rising in their ranks from younger generations?
I think if you actually look back at like even in the 80s, 70s, that sort of era, there was basically no women in tech, right? So it's taken 40 years to get this far. And we still have in those senior positions boomers and members of that generation who've kind of rode that early tech wave. And it's probably going to take a few more years for them to kind of move out and for the natural progression to go up. Saying that doesn't mean we just sit back and do nothing and wait. It is an active change that we will have to participate in. But sometimes these changes do take time. And they take a couple of generations to propagate through the workforce.
And I think like kind of having that baseline, right, of like this is where we started and this is where we're going, and just acknowledging that we are progressing even if it feels like we're not.
To be reflective in that way as well, right?
100%. But it definitely starts at schools, because I'm just trying to think back to when I was at school and relate to what you were saying. Like, I did chemistry and I was the only girl in the class.
No, really?
However, even though you wouldn't think chemistry is a...
No, you
No,
wouldn't.
but I was the only girl in the class. So what can we do at that level to encourage more girls to even like find that subject interesting? Because I've got a little sister, and I think it will be her worst nightmare to study computer science. Even though she's super clever, she's really good at maths. But it's because I think, again, it's still seen like that even in her generation. So what do you think we could do? I know it's a loaded question.
Education. I think that's it.
I do tutor. I am a tutor outside of work, and I think one of the steps to get people interested in it is to, you have these topics that they need help in, and it's just to walk with them, tell them that there's like no stupid questions. Even if you don't understand what's happening, I'm not doing a good enough job of explaining it to you, And then you get past the point of them understanding, and then you like kind of make it fun for them, where it becomes a game, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's great. You keep encouraging them. You're telling them that they're doing awesome, and then they make these connections on their own, and they figure out like, wow, this is connected to this, is connected to this, and then it becomes more fun for them. And while they might not always end up liking it, some people, some women or some girls will actually really like it, because that's what happened to me, right? Like I did my major in my undergrad was in astrophysics, and a lot of the time, because I was an athlete, I didn't have enough time to understand what I was doing, and I kind of got lost a little bit for a large portion of my classes because I just couldn't go to office hours. But then afterwards, when I was going into tutoring, because my mindset was I didn't have good tutors, so maybe for the next person, if they do, they can do better. And kind of getting into that mindset, and learning about these subjects over and over again so I could start tutoring them, I actually really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought that I would.
Yeah.
I used to always say I hate physics, but I love astrophysics. No, they're both great. They're fine.
I think so, like mentorship then.
Yeah, definitely mentorship. Yeah.
And the fact that you tutor other girls, I think you're actually part of that movement. You're like inspiring younger women. I think we need more of that.
A lot of people become interested in something at a very, very young age. And I think it goes back to something you both said. You've mentioned video games, you mentioned you asked your grandma for some trucks and she bought you a Barbie. So as a very young child, I would obviously get, my trucks, my remote control cars, which made me interested in, I guess, engineering in a way, because I wanted to know how the remote control car works. And there was plenty of chemistry sets and things like that I was bought where I could make glass crystals in a certain format, and it sounds like maybe you weren't afforded that same thing to get yourself into chemistry at that early age. And it's only something very basic, but
it's in like the
That's
toys
so
and the
true.
interactive activities
Yeah.
when you're younger.
Like, when you would buy a Barbie, or like a baby Annabelle, so the first thing you think is, oh, it'll be a mum then, or something like that. You
Kind
wouldn't
of
think-
perpetuating
Yeah.
the stereotypes or the gender roles, kind of.
That's what
It comes down to
Yeah.
tearing down like society's normalized gender roles at an early age, or not tearing them down, but at least trying to blend them a little bit more, so there is like
You have
not
choices.
as strong definition.
Challenging.
Yeah,
Choices
yeah.
for sure. I mean, you said something really. I liked the idea of that mentorship. And you said something really interesting the other day about mentorship. I think where it's kind of different when it's. I don't know if you want to bring that one up. But.
Oh yeah. We were talking about the difference between mentorship and sponsorship, right? And trying to work out like kind of what the difference is. And to me, like mentorship kind of means that you have that experience, like you've gone through it, and then you can teach people about it, right? So. And then sponsorship is almost being an ally and supporting people going through the challenges they're going through, even though you don't have any of those lived experiences. So, I will never be able to mentor you guys in how to progress in your careers as women because I have never had that experience. And no matter what advice I give you, I can give you the best advice for me, but it will never fit sort of the progress that you're going through. However, I can still sit back there and be an ally and sponsor you and help you and support you in ways that you need, even if I don't understand exactly what you're going through. And that's not just across the gender spectrum as well. It's people's backgrounds, where they're from, upbringing, sexuality,
Right.
like everything. And I think that's something that we all need to be aware of. It's like mentoring the people that you can mentor and sponsoring everyone.
Exactly.
Love
Exactly,
that. That's actually
Good
really nice to
response.
hear.
Yeah.
Heartwarming.
Very much. Yeah.
Kind of like mentoring is pulling upwards, whereas sponsoring is pushing upwards.
Yeah.
Ooh. This might be a difficult question, but has there ever been a time where you might have had a subconscious bias that you want to share?
That you noticed maybe later on that you want to share.
Undoubtedly. Maybe not so much in the workplace, I don't think. It probably has, but just on the spot, it's very much within sport. So I've grown up playing football, I've played to a decent level, and obviously there is a lot of debate now in women versus men and pay gaps and things like that within football. And I've definitely had opinions in the past which I maybe don't hold now. The women's game has come such a long way in such a short amount of time. I had the opportunity to play with one of the Welsh women's players when I was 18 maybe, while I was still playing at a decent level.
Who?
Last name Taylor. Couldn't tell you first name in all honesty with you. But it was just five-a-side. It was a family member of one of the boys I played with,
Nice.
and they came along to play with us. And I was surprised by the level she came in. I almost thought, yeah, she's a professional footballer, we're still going to be so much better. I know that's a horrible thing to say, but that obviously isn't my opinion.
No, I
right
really
now.
appreciate you being honest.
That's not the question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I never trust anyone who says that they've always been good, because you get better by learning. And obviously she changed my opinion on that. And my opinion has obviously grown since then as well, and it's always something I'm revisiting as well as the game grows and as everyone becomes more aware of everything.
That's great. I really hope everyone thinks that way.
Yeah.
I think for this one, it comes back to what I said at the start. I've always worked in male-dominated companies. I used to work in logistics originally and now in tech. And so you have to work quite hard to actually analyse your own subconscious bias and be like, hang on, why do I think that? That's just I think a really common one in the workplace that, I mean, I could speak for myself, but there's still a societal expectation that women are the primary child caregivers. And so a common one for the workplace is that, maybe a woman in her late 20s or early 30s would need to take some time off or want to take some time off to look after a child and things. And it's almost like this subconscious thing of, well, actually a man can take care of a child the same as a woman, really, so why do we not expect that a man might want to take some time out of his career and maybe come back to his career in a few years? Whereas society still expects that will be a woman that will do that job, if that's something they want.
That's so true. Yeah.
It's that societal pressure on it as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm very aware that there's a lot of biases
Yeah,
that I have growing up, and I am working on it slowly.
Yeah.
I'm becoming more wise on the issues.
Yeah.
Trying to educate myself.
There you go.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that for you. That's
Love that for
Cheers.
you. Psychological safety is a kind of a shared belief within a team or an organization that it's safe to take these interpersonal risks. That is, it's safe to speak up, it's safe to speak out, admit mistakes, ask questions, challenge the status quo, things like that. So to you personally, what does psychological safety kind of mean to you? And have you been in a team where it was missing? Do you think that missing piece, had anything to do with bro culture? If there was one, have you experienced any of that?
I think this really comes down the idea of psychological safety to ego, right? It's being able to express your opinions without your ego being damaged in a way, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like we're in a team here where I can very much say something, be completely wrong and be okay with that and learn from that and admit that I've made a mistake. Or ask questions that might be considered stupid or by some people, but not feel scared to ask them because it doesn't matter to my ego if it's if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I've definitely been in workplaces where you've been ridiculed, and I don't know if that's bro culture or just toxic workplace culture. But there's definitely been places where I felt like I couldn't ask questions that needed to be asked or couldn't express my opinions, or they weren't valid because they would have been met with aggression. And that's very damaging because then you can't express yourself. I think being able to express yourself is what makes you comfortable. I don't know if that's going to be more appropriate with the bro culture or if that's more prevalent with men and women, but that's just something I've experienced.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think for me, when I first started here, it was my first, big girl job in field of AI or whatever, right? But when I first started here, I don't think I had that, as it is, right? I don't think I had that psychological safety just yet, because I'm just trying to make sure that that I'm taken seriously, that I'm understanding what everyone's talking about, that I'm showing that I can contribute to the workplace. But I think you're right in the idea that it is just an ego thing. And I think that now that we're such a close group, such a close team, and that we're able to rely on each other for support and for knowledge, I think it is absolutely safe to say that I very much have psychological safety in this office. There may be discrepancies in why, it all leads back to ego, right? But there may be discrepancies onto what that ego kind of is pointing towards. For men and women, I think it's a little bit different. But ultimately, you're right. I think it is an ego thing.
Yeah. And do you feel comfortable now that you could express your opinion and you wouldn't ever feel like you were, put down for it? Or
I think particularly in this office, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm very grateful for that. I think that we're very lucky to be in a place, as women, I think we're very lucky to be in a place where, although there are more men than women, I don't feel that insecurity, that need for an ego.
Well, it's sad that you say that you're very lucky. Well, that's not normal.
Really?
Well, the implication of saying that you're very lucky means that it's not normal, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
It's
Should
a lot of companies it wouldn't be, but it should be.
Yeah.
Should be. You join any company and you'll just be the same.
Should be
guy
given,
not.
right?
Yeah.
We're working on it, hopefully.
Especially in Cardiff, you are one of the leaders here.
Yeah.
Me?
So you'll never be seen as just somebody in the office.
You're
so
Not AI lead.
2 thumbs.
And I guess us, we're kind of newbies. So coming into this office has been really refreshing to see you guys and feel psychologically safe.
I've always struggled massively with imposter syndrome in my career, like
Really?
sort of professional anxiety. So I've always avoided asking questions if there was any way that I could get round asking a question. And I think it's something you have to mentally train yourself to do. Just be like, it's okay. People will answer this question. You won't look like an idiot, even if it's a stupid question. You just have to ask it. So it's quite an active battle, and that's speaking as a man in a male-dominated workplace. So I think if you're probably a woman, that must be quite challenging to do as well, because then you're a woman asking a question that could make you look stupid, and you could, people could perceive it differently than if a man did it. So
that's crazy, because you're such a good developer as well.
Yeah, for real. I mean, I definitely agree. We've had conversations on the podcast about imposter syndrome. So I think I mentioned this in like a previous video, but growing up all the way through, going to UC Berkeley and being an athlete, there the idea is that, oh, you're an athlete, you don't go to UC Berkeley, you go to Cal. Like, you're not doing the smart stuff, you're doing the athletic stuff, right? And like one of the first people that I dated was like, oh, you can't do astrophysics actually, like you can't. So kind of getting that and like going through university, like I said, not really knowing what I was doing, I'm like, oh, what? Do I belong here? Do I know what I'm doing? Do I know what I'm, talking about? But then, I mean, kind of that training, that like reinforcement of yourself, like, yeah, I do know what I'm talking about. I do know what I'm learning now. And then going to grad school, like I said before in like a previous episode, going to grad school was the very first time that I actually felt like I knew what I was talking about. And so to kind of carry that idea that I know what I'm talking about into the workplace and kind of reminding myself of that, maybe on an hourly basis sometimes, it does a little bit help with that imposter syndrome. But yeah.
Do you feel like proving it to yourself now? To some degree,
Yes.
you belong where you are?
I do, for the most part. I think there's always kind of like those times when you're hard on yourself and you a little bit revert to past behaviors.
You revert to the behaviors that are comfortable.
That are comfortable, that you're used to, And it is that kind of stepping out of your comfort zone and making sure that you're practicing those new, I guess, practices, for lack of a better term, new practices that will help you grow. Because the more you practice, like we talked about earlier, the more you practice, the better you get with it. And maybe it'll take like 10 minutes of reassurance of yourself when you first start, where the next time it'll take like just one phrase in your head and you're like, okay, yeah, I am better.
Also, I think that, just to bring it back to our company, I think the men here really do help with like encouraging us to say our ideas and present our findings and things. So I think that really helps with imposter syndrome. So yeah, thanks guys.
Is there anything else, I guess, from your perspective that we could do as men on the team to like help you guys feel more comfortable?
I mean, I think you guys, like I said, do a really great job of it. And I think the only thing I would say is just to continue to be open-minded. Continue to listen to understand and not listen to respond. I think is important. Like I said, you guys are doing a great job with it already. But just the knowledge that you are trying to better yourself and trying to consistently stay as a support system for us is already doing a lot.
So before we wrap up this episode, we want to talk about the future generation. So if there was a young lady listening to this podcast today, what would you want her to take from this conversation?
I guess the exact same thing I would want a young boy to think. You don't have to be defined by certain buckets. You don't have to place yourself in a bucket. You don't have to think, oh, I'm a lady, or I'm a boy, I have to like football, I have to like rugby, I have to like Barbie, I have to like cooking. None of that makes any sense. Wherever your interests lie, who cares what the perceived notion of it is? Just do what you enjoy doing. And that's how, if everyone just did that, we wouldn't need
the world to be a better place.
Tom for president?
2026.
Love that. Nice.
Yeah.
Anything to add, guys?
That was a really good response.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess for me it's just like the tech industry is for everyone.
Yeah.
Gender, everything.
Yeah, tech for all.
Tech for all.
Yeah.
I think it's done a really good job of responding to that, to be fair. But I think I agree with what you said as well. It's tech for all. One of the questions that were considered for the podcast was, if it wasn't a sort of a boys' club, as it were, if it wasn't what's the actual purpose of this?
Bro culture.
Bro culture.
What is this about?
If it wasn't like bro culture, how different would the industry be? And my response to that was going to be that we'd solve everyone's problems rather than the problems of straight white men, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's tech for everyone. Solve a problem you find interesting and do what you find interesting. Like you said.
Love that.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Connor, Tom, and Dan for sharing your reflections on, bro culture and what it means to make a more empowering, inclusive workplace. If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with new releases. Leave us a message via SpeakPipe, linked in the description below, link below. Tell us what you thought of this discussion, any points that you'd like to add.
Yes.
As always, stay bold, stay kind, and stay curious. And I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.